What's going on? You're in the Beat Sessions, your place for all things music. I'm your host, Mitchell Weary. It's Friday, August 2nd, and I'm coming to you from lovely San Diego, California this weekend. I'm out here for Tiki Oasis with my bar owner and a bunch of my bartenders, celebrating the opening of Kabali back in February, and also the release of a documentary that we're making about the bar. Hopefully that's out later in the fall. It's all very exciting stuff. Happy to be a part of it. But between you and I'm a little more excited about this new Smashing Pumpkins album. It's entitled Aghori Mhori Mei, and it is the 13th studio album from the Chicago outfit. Their follow-up to 2023's Autumn, a sprawling three-rock opera that they actually started releasing back in November of 2022. It's a decent project overall. Listen to it a few more times. It's growing on me. I will still argue that Act 2 is a little lackluster, a little mediocre. This band, it's the fifth time that I'm talking about them on the channel. For better or for worse, what a privilege. Billy Corgan is someone who has meant so much to me over the years, has meant so much to all of you over the years. And this new record, for those of you who are roughly about my age, 40 years of age, or, you know, it doesn't even matter. Like, if you got into this band because of their early work, this is the record that some of us have really been waiting like 30 years for. And I don't say that lightly. And it's not that I've wanted this band to have a return to form. It's not that I've wanted Billy Corgan to just, make the same kind of music year after year after year, because there's so much that he's done in the last 25 years that I love. I love the shift towards electronica. I think that there's so much music that he's made with all of those genre ideas in mind that's fantastic. The song "I" comes to mind immediately. I think that song is just stellar. "Adore" is great. Machines of God is a wonderful album. I think one of the big things with this new record is that it feels like Billy and Jimmy and James actually sat down to make a classic album. Not a classic Pumpkins album, but like a classic album. 10 songs, 45 minutes. You look at the runtimes on everything, like the two Machines projects they're like 72 minutes and 90 minutes, I believe. You look at the Tear Garden by Kaleidoscope project, that's supposed to be 34 songs. I think Oceana is well over an hour. Monuments to an Elegy is 9 songs. It's only 34 minutes, but it's still like there's supposed to be another, 11 songs or something like that? 12 songs? Shiny and Oh So Bright, another short project, but there's supposed to be, other installments, and we never got those. I joke a little bit that Billy almost started to become like the George R.R. Martin of freaking rock and roll, just starting all these projects and being like, the inspiration's gone. I don't know. I've always appreciated his ambition. I've always appreciated him for trying to do what he's done, being the main songwriter in this outfit. And I'd also argue that I don't think that any of these records that I've mentioned are bad. There's a lot of fat that could be trimmed on a lot of these projects. There's a lot of, mediocrity because of that's out there. I think that there are times where Billy's production choices come into question. And that's another thing on this new record that, the production is phenomenal, in my opinion. It's just absolutely stellar the way that there's so many moments that you hear Billy's voice take a backseat to the music, where that hasn't really been the case previously, especially on Autumn. I felt, when I reviewed that record, when I was listening to it, and when I go back and listen to it still, there were so many people, including myself, that felt the vocal production was just too much. They just were too up there to let anything else shine through, and it was unfortunate, amongst many other things. And so what I love about Aghori Mhori Mei, let's get into the things that I really love about this record. This is a band that has been known for its hard, heavy sound. It's also been known for its tenderness, and you get a beautiful balance of both of those things on this record. And that's like quintessential vintage Pumpkins, right? You think about a record like Siamese Dream, and you have hard hitters, but then you have, like songs like Space Boy, and you have songs like Disarm, where you get just this very vulnerable side of Billy. And what I'd argue is that previous albums in the last 10, 15 years, those emotions have come out in a manner that, to me, in my opinion, they've felt poppy. They felt contrived. They just didn't feel as authentic as I wanted them to, versus they are just hitting on all fronts on this record. Marno, I believe is how you say the last track is. Billy likes to do that. I mean, I like literally was like tearing up because it's just such a pretty piano melody that he's put into work here. But also, I mean, given what I just sat through for the first time as well, from start to finish, no filler, everything feels essential in the experience, where I haven't felt that in so long on a Pumpkins album. I haven't felt that way in 30 years. And I imagine there's a lot of you that feel that way too. And Billy likes to joke about, this album in particular. He's like, giving the people what they want, getting back to that old rock and roll guitar sound. And I don't know if that's what we wanted, Billy. I think what we wanted is something a little more simple, just a little more, I mean, I'll say it, just like down on our level, for the rest of us plebs that aren't rock stars, that don't have all the time in the world to sit around and listen to art and do all this stuff. It's really freaking awesome that you guys committed to putting together a project like this. Just a good old-fashioned classic rock and roll album, not even classic Pumpkins album. That's not the point. I don't think that's what any of us wanted. I don't think it's definitely what I didn't want. But what I wanted are the riffs, and they're hitting so hard on this record. They are, I mean, the progressions, the production, the heaviness, and at times, the not so heaviness. There's a couple moments on this record where, talking about that playfulness, that tenderness that Billy has, and just nailing it on all fronts there with the guitar work. It doesn't matter if they're going heavy or going soft, they're shredding on this thing, and it feels so good to hear. There's also a great balance of synth work too, and that's something that when they started putting out records like Adore, Machines of God, I love that. I love electronic music, always have. And this is a band that more often than not has done it well. But I think where I've fallen off with regards to that end of their catalog is these last few records. There's good stuff, but there's a lot of mediocre stuff. And, maybe stuff that was only mediocre because, it just needed a different set of ears, different production, whatever it may have been. But the synth work on this record is stellar as well. Like it is equally as good as the guitar work. Jimmy Chamberlin, I love his presence on this record. The drumming is crisp and clean. Again, the production value, he sounds amazing on this thing. It's okay to mess around with a drum machine from time to time. Make some loops, have some fun, do some cool things on some songs, right? But this was another thing that I've heard so many of you talk about, something that I've talked about a bunch. When you have one of the best rock and roll drummers in the world, let him do his thing. And Jimmy is very clearly doing his thing on this record. Sounds great. Really pumped about that element of it. I love that they didn't release any singles. This is something that I bring up on the channel frequently. I make an effort to try not to listen to any new music from a record that's coming out that I want to review. I really believe that it's important, just the way that I see music, the way I like to listen to music, to have those experiences be contained within that moment, right? And I think that when you listen to a handful of songs a handful of times, you lose this element of excitement, right? As you go through a whole record, that familiarity, after a few listens, it's just like, I don't feel like that track necessarily has the same presence or hits the same way that it would, had you just left it alone until listening to the project in its entirety. And so I appreciate that the boys approached this album like this, kept it very quiet. And the quiet, I think, is what is going to be a big part of this success. And I think a big part of why there's been so much criticism of the Pumpkins over the years for all their other projects is the hype that Billy always likes to throw at stuff. It's that hype. And then I love this because I was thinking it and then I was reading around and there's a handful of other people that say it. The guy that wrote a review for Kerrang, I'm forgetting his name, but hit the nail on the head. And I was thinking it that there's this like self-deprecating nature to Billy that he's used to promote projects, and it doesn't work, right? It's, you're like undercutting your previous releases and placing this new material up on a level, and you just don't know. So I love that they just made music that was true to themselves and they put it out there. And without really saying anything, he's just like, I'm just going to let the rest of you decide. And I feel like all of us are deciding that this is, I'm going to say it, this is the fourth best Smashing Pumpkins album ever. You can rank the first three records in whatever order you want to, I think. That would be a fun debate. I'd love to see it in the comments, see what you think about that. But there's no doubt in my mind that this record is an instant classic for this band. It just gives me chills saying it. 30 years, most of us have waited to hear this record. This is all we've wanted. Billy, I guess, just being true to Billy. Billy exploring other sides of Billy the way that he has throughout the last couple of decades. That's totally cool too. Like, I love seeing that side of artists. There's so much great art, not just music, but art in general, that has come out of self-discovery. But there's an element to Billy's angst, and in contrast to that delicate side of his nature that just resonates with so many of us. And I think that that's just what we missed. It wasn't that we want you to keep making the same music. I feel like there was this disconnect between him and the audience for a number of years. And this album feels like all of them really reconnecting with us. And I'm just so thrilled to talk about this thing. It kicks off with Eden, which, comparing this to these other stellar albums, you look at Gish opens up with I Am One, Cherub Rock on Siamese Dream, and then Melancholy on Melancholy and Infinite Sadness, contrasting, delicate piano number, but it sets a tone and it hits in such a dynamic, powerful way that you're immediately drawn in. Another thing that I think Billy has failed to do with previous records in the past, the album opener is so important. It really is. Like, you need to set the tone immediately, and for whatever you decided to do from that point, I love an album that takes good twists and turns. So this is a good example. It starts with Eden, which is nice and heavy. You get just this great opening riff. It brings a lot of good feels, and then it hits really hard, and the energy is just great. Nice heavy riff, different changes in the tempo and the mood throughout the course of the song. It's a big composition. It's like a 6-minute opener. It's got this grandiose quality, but where so much of what Billy and the band has done in the last 2 decades has been, it's been grandiose in a way that I would say is, detrimental. This is just him doing what he does at his best. I mean, really, this opening song is pretty spectacular. I am a huge fan of it. Pentagrams. Very interesting guitar riff to open. You got some fun programming that they're playing with on there. It's it's got this like medieval kind of like quality in the tone there, but nice heavy track. It's got that sultry Pumpkins flair. You just get those kind of like gothy synths that sit there and work in the background, just very nuanced, but still play a nice role. And this song, it just keeps getting better as it builds. I freaking love it. Sagomi is your third song. Rolling off. I got a rolling riff and drums to open up. It's not quite as heavy as Pentagrams, but you're still getting a bit of that feel. Nice bright melodies on this one, making that shift on this track. Pentecost is your fourth song. Ominous piano to open. I really, really like the piano on this song. Drums and synth, got that goth feel. It's just Born of the Macabre. Light shift in the synths though, driving drums behind them, and then you get this coda that just swells with strings. Absolutely gorgeous. Really enjoyed that. War Dreams of Itself. Great song title, great track. Just mean out the gate. Love how heavy this is, and the verse just finds such a sick groove. I am such a fan of this song. Might be my favorite along with Eden. I don't know. Like the album opener really is pretty damn good. Who Goes There is your sixth song. Heavy synth with minimal programming. And Billy's voice is the focus on this, but with great production again. It doesn't feel like it's too much. It's such a little thing, but I think all of you, if you've listened to the stuff previously, will notice it and be really, really pleased with what's going on with regards to this on the record. But I like the way that the drums hit for like a really unique track. That has a bit of Americana. Like you get that opening with just the vocal, the music comes in, and seriously, like this thing, it feels like it's got like a bit of like folk and country flair. And I'm hard pressed with the Pumpkins anyway. Like he may in solo stuff or other projects created music like this, but I mean, this may have be like the first time that Billy's messed around with something that's like kind of country. And it's working really well. I am a huge fan of this song. 999 is your seventh track. Spooky piano ushers in a moody, heavy arrangement. Verses are simple. The riff gets heavy, just super heavy, and especially in the coda. I really like the finish on the song. Go With the Fall is your eighth track. Breezy riff, mid-tempo with light melodies. Jimmy's drums, as I mentioned before, are phenomenal, but on this particular track, they are so clean and crisp, and it's so nice to hear him doing what he does best. Really very pleased about that. Sicarius is your penultimate track. Back to that nice heavy feel. Chorus lightens up a bit with the vocal melody and other instrumentation. It's a cool back and forth. Really dig that. And then Murnau, I believe is how you say that, your final track that I mentioned, just pretty as hell. The piano and vocal, it takes a unique shift with the orchestration. Like the groove in the song is amazing. It's lush. It's vibrant. It's like I said, this thing, like it almost stirred me to tears. By the time I was done with this, I was like, just shocked that this thing was done because it went by so fast. And just, as I stated, after 30 years, just having this experience that for as much as I love Billy experimenting, I think I can speak for all of us when I say that I love that just authentic side of Billy, and that's what you're getting on this record. It's definitely a solid 8.5 out of 10. Final pleasing this for sure. Just happy as hell to have this addition to the catalog, and I really hope that you all enjoy this record. I hope you find this review helpful as well. Please like this video, share it, subscribe to the channel, do all the things to help me blow this project up in 2024, and stay tuned throughout the week for more album reviews. We'll see you next time on the Beat Sessions.